Okay. So I think we should be up. I'm going to do a quick check. And other than that, welcome everyone. This is the treatment speaking. And I am going to be commentating solo today for the AIL finals, which is featuring Carl Diaz, aka NIU Math, on Ashteki and Redentor. I'm just double checking something, so I'll be with you guys in a second. Looks like they haven't joined yet. But yeah, hopefully this is going to be, well, I mean, I expect it to be a very exciting match because it's between two great players. And Carl has been on a long run with a mixture of creepers and even some creeper fallen decks. And Redentor, as far as I know, has been playing Herald in many matches, but he's also known for his Jericho hoppers. So we will see what they actually bring, because it is an open format and they can bring anything they want. And yeah, this is gonna be fun. Okay, so it is Redentor on Herald, and I'm assuming it is some variation of Pact Herald, which means that it's Phoenix Attendant with Chant of Transfusion. And then Carl, interestingly, is on a Jessa deck, and moreover, it's a Jessa that isn't featuring any Sympathy Pain, and it's not featuring any Ceremonials. So that means that there's not going to be a strong, like, Final Cry, Bloodchains, Fester type of game. There's no Salamander Monk. I know Carl has also played a lot of Jessas with Turtle guards, but there's no time here. So this should be interesting. I'm actually kind of suspecting that it might be some sort of Voltron-esque Holy Knight, or maybe Steadfast deck, where he just goes really tall and then sits back and does a lot of burn. I think I played against him doing that one time, and that will be a very big challenge for Herald, because if there's armor involved, then Hunter's Mark starts to become less effective. So we're just in the process of Redentor choosing his first five. Carl seems to have his game plan worked out, so whether he is on a fixed plan or whether he did his research and just knows exactly what he wants to do against a suspected Herald list, he's coming in confident. Hey, Shadow, how's it going? Can you hear me? I'm partially watching the chat in case anyone does have any questions or things that they want to offer up. Okay, Redentor is just, I guess, out of practice playing against Jessa and Fear lately, so he's just doing some double checking on the cards, which is always what you should do. I think it's one of the strategy tips that we have written down on the wiki. Make sure you understand what your opponent's ability does and what your opponent's unique card is and does, because it is very easy to make strategic mistakes especially in the first 5, if you aren't clear on what you're doing. So it could indicate that maybe Redentor has Rising Horde in his deck and was considering whether he should play it. Fear is a discard effect, so it destroys Jess's unit, but it discards the opponent target unit. So that would be bad because then you don't get the Fallen out of the Rising Horde. But yeah, I'm expecting probably Bear, maybe Old Salt on Redentor's side. I'm not really sure what the Illusion and Charm dice are for. It's possible he has Gilder, which would be interesting, and just going sort of very strong on the ping side of things. Maybe he also has Raptor Herder in there, maybe some Ice Traps, and then, yeah, on Carl's side, oh, okay, first card in the bin is a Fear, so we know that he's not playing Playtimes. He's going with the Fear strategy, so hard sort of control. I'll see if I can have these windows, the discard windows up. But yeah, for anyone, in case you do want to see Fear, it's up there on the left. Law of Fear and Meteor. Okay, this is exciting. So I do think this is the list I have seen him play once or twice before. It is a very defensive deck. So he's actually got 2 Lightbringer books. Maybe there's a third in deck, which is interesting. Knowing that there's at least 1 Meteor, there's probably 2, possibly 3, and knowing that there's a Law of Fear, we could also see 2 or 3 of those if his game plan is to really just stop all the small units, use Screams as much as possible, and then maybe some sort of alert or impenetrable. I think it's going to be a Holy Knight, but that's just my suspicion. All right, so we do see Frostback Bear come down. Yep, there we go. Called it. The treatment is a genius. So there we go. Holy Knight is on the board, and I'm expecting either Root Armor or what's that one that creates Rooted? I always forget. Devotion. And from the discards, we can also see that Redentor is playing Phoenix Attendants, no surprise, and Ice Traps. So this is going to be a very cool match. Oh, yes. Thank you, Shadow. Demon. I forgot that is another A source of ping, which works really well for Herald. It's also one of Redentor's, I think, preferred units. And that would make sense as the extra conjuration, because I couldn't think of what the 3 might be. So if it is Demon, that's already 5 dice on the board. I think Old Salt is highly likely, so that would be 7. So then we've got 2 cards and 3 dice left. We'll see what happens. In all likelihood, it is a Chant of Transfusion deck, so that would be Ritualist and a Chant for another 2 dice, and then something that takes up the last die. Maybe a Fester if he's suspected something big. It could be anything, but probably a Flex 5. Oh, dear Lord. Uh-oh. A server error has occurred. Well, that's not great. Let's see if they want to restart and just manual mode it. Yeah, so Root Armor is ultimately what's going to be protecting the Holy Knight from Hunter's Mark doing really anything. And I wouldn't be surprised if Carl does an early swing with the Holy Knight, say at the Frostback Bear, and then plays Devotion so that it's immediately refreshed. It's bigger, it's alert, it's standing there, and Redentor will have to try and go wide, probably. But unfortunately, Ashteki is bugging out, so that is an issue. Okay, cool. And we also have Charlotte in the chat. Hey there, Charlotte. Always glad to have you around because you're the hype person for streams, at least. And now I am disconnected. Okay, hang on here. It's not good when the streamer is disconnected from the match. Let me just type something and I'm going to mute myself for a sec. Okay, so hopefully we can fix this, but if not, well, I'm going to take a screenshot just because this way we have a state of affairs in case they do want to restart or do anything manually or in case anything happens. Good thing I'm streaming, folks. Oh dear, it's getting worse and worse. This is fun. Oh, there you go. Just before Dijon heads on vacation. So what's happening with everyone in the chat? We got Shadow, we got Charlotte. Anybody else in there? I saw Tim was watching on the mobile app. Tonight was supposed to be 3 of us. It was supposed to be Possible German, Killer Cactus, and myself. But they have had other priorities, and I think, at least with Killer, he is spending the last night with the family before him and his boys head to Gen Con, which is exciting. And I know that Charlotte, I believe, is heading there as well as Chaos Theory. So it should be a good time. And he's doing a long drive. He will also be doing a stream of some effect. I believe he's going to do some deck building. Maybe he'll take in questions and topics from audience members on chat because it is a long drive for him. So if you guys do have time, I think he's planning it around 6 p.m. Eastern. So jump on. It should be on our channel, the Jankyard channel, and send him some messages, or worst case, send him some messages in Discord. Give him something to talk about. Give him some deck ideas to build. And yeah, Clue was another backup option, but he is off to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new movie, so that should be fun. So yeah, you guys have to deal with me and my meandering thoughts. Shadow says he has already sent him some ideas for him to build. For Shadow, of course, specifically, because that's what Killer did last time. There were some good decks, and, you know, not to toot Killer's horn, because he does build great decks, but I beat Shadow with the, effectively, the Cactus Beater 5000 with some modifications in the team tournament recently, and on one of our casual friendly nights, he did the same with the deck made for him. Charlotte asks, when is the baby due? It's currently due on the 17th. So just over 2 weeks. And then, yeah, I will be probably away from the streaming at least for a little bit, and probably away from playing games unless I do some crazy late nights. But yeah, very exciting time for me. And we have a lot of, I think, babies on the way. I know Chaos Theory has a baby. I think there was potentially one more. And of course, late last year, or maybe it was earlier this year, Monk also had a child. So fun times. All right, we got the root armor fixed. Huzzah. Now we can resume the shenanigans. So let's go. Let's hype it up. There we go. What'd I say? Devotion. Boom. Smack him for 3. Devotion. Now that is one beefy, untargetable knight. And even if Redentor was in colors for Meteor, that thing has armor and it's got 5 life. It is not going anywhere, and Herald is potentially in a little bit of trouble. The good news is that Devotion means that it is rooted, so it won't be swinging anytime soon. But I do now know what deck Carl's playing, so I know that there are some tricks. I think Close Combat got me a few times. I don't know if he's updated his list, but that is in there, which was a pain to deal with. He's got the Gilder, he's got the Lightbringer, so he's just going to be standing there for a while, and by round 2, I think that's when the Burn Engine will turn on, and we'll see what a Chant of Transfusion deck can do, because the nice thing is that with Chants, as long as you can turn them on, then you can move wounds around. The question is, what is Redentor going to move wounds from that doesn't immediately die to swinging into the Holy Knight? He's going to find a way, maybe using his own False Demon, maybe using some other tricks, just hoping that Carl naively Gilder pings something of sufficient value. But this is going to be a tricky match, I think. Mark cannot. I think the last time I played, Ashteki had it wrong. But because Hunter's Mark is an alteration and all alterations target units, Holy Knight is immune from it. Carl doesn't care if he wins. He's just happy he figured out manual mode. Congratulations, Carl. You did it. I'm assuming that doesn't, that's not like a concede or anything. He didn't say GG, so we'll still watch the rest of this game. Oops, sorry. All right. Now, Redentor, he is quite a good player. He does spend some time in the tank thinking about things, and what's nice is that we are not on a clock. So there's no blitz timer, there's no regular timer. We've got potentially quite the chess battle here, because, like I said, Frostback Bear is not going to do anything in terms of the bypass here. And I don't think Carl is going to willfully give him chant tokens where possible unless he gains something out of advantage. One thing Carl is really, really good at doing is early passing, or even just advantageously passing. He's got his board set up. He's got no cards in hand. He's got 2 frog dice that we talk about all the time. Frog up, because you never know when your opponent's going to pass, and it's a free removal. He could just honestly ping the Ritualist, say who cares about the tokens because he can't move anything, and then Redentor can't swing, but he can start screaming away. So this is going to be interesting. The Holy Knight is never going to exhaust because it's alert, so False Demon is also a little bit sad here. And And we're still not sure what the last 2 dice are going to be in Redentor's hand. The last card is potentially, well, it could be anything. It could be, it's probably Old Salt. Let's be honest. It's almost certainly that's what he went for, because then you have your chance. Then you can move the wounds, but that's not going to really help in this matchup unless he starts doing really wide swings. But Carl still has 2 units to put down. So Redentor is just clarifying the Hunter's Mark, whether it can target Holy Knight, as I just mentioned. And that is probably going to be a sad realization for him. Here we go. We've got Age of the Clankomatics. He says, "Oh my god, Devotion Holy Knight was one of my first deck ideas that I tried and then dismissed it as terrible." Yeah, well, I don't think you're alone there, Age. Most people do dismiss it, and unless you are Carl Diaz or Red King, it generally is terrible. But in this meta, it's a little slower. Jessa has found her place again in a slower burn meta. We're not seeing the super fast, super aggro Hope Swarm decks with Sallies and Lightbringers, that type of thing. We are not we're not facing Brennans that, now just burn over the top and don't really care what you do. So this is a perfectly situated time in Ashes right now to play something like this, and no better person to pilot that than Carl. I think, just from memory, the only reason I managed to beat Carl was that I was running Guilt Link in my matchup, because I was also on a Herald, and thankfully that enabled me to kill off the Holy Knight, or at least force him to kill off the Holy Knight. But Redentor is not in that position, so we'll see what he does. So this is the Jankyard Podcast, Age, and either me or Schmendrix or Killer Cactus or a number of other people will always tell you, as you gain experience, revisit all your old ideas, because terrible ideas, they might be terrible as a whole, but they might have a lot of good nuggets to them that you just have to iterate. We're all about the jank, and a lot of jank ideas turn into really solid ideas after iterating and after gaining some experience. And also sometimes it's just a matter, like I said, of what the meta is. Some decks function really well when things are fast. Some things function well when they're slow. Some things function when they're tall. Some things function when they're, small weenies. But don't ever dismiss any idea outright. There's been, Red King's run Cut the Strings, and that's widely considered one of the worst cards. So go back to all those ideas, refine, and try them again. Shmenny, you're here. I thought you were on vacation. You could be commentating with me. You could use that sultry voice of yours to beef up this commentary. Carl can run anything, but he also made a nice call based on what Redentor has been running. That's true. Redentor himself, the other day, maybe he slipped, and he shouldn't have revealed, but he said that he hasn't had a lot of time to really test a lot of other ideas, so he's been relying on the Pact Herald that has been around now for a couple months in various forms. And it's a great deck, and it's taken him this far, but when you do go to the finals, there's a little bit of mind games and guesswork into what your opponent is likely to play and also what they like to play. And you can scout a million games, but somebody like Carl has so many games and he's got so many tricks up his sleeve, it can be very hard. So sometimes you just go with what you know and what you know is strong. I agree, Shadow. Shmenny is being lazy. He's just sitting around, not helping me. No surprise. Oh, board games. Okay, well, that's cool. Right now, we're hyping the AIL finals here. And I think someone asked me earlier in Discord what AIL is. I think technically it stands for Ashes International League. But it is really, it's what it is it's an open format tournament. So that means that on a week to week or round to round, I should say, basis, you can change your deck. It is closed list. We're not publishing our decks before or after. So part of the fun is that in a closed deck list, you can have surprises, you can have gotchas. Sometimes you can use the combos that are perhaps easy to anticipate if you saw the deck list in advance. This matchup, I think, showcases that a little bit, because if you saw a Holy Knight, Root Armor, Devotion in a deck list that was published ahead of time, then you would probably set yourself up with something like an Adept Duelist or other form of hard removal that could handle it. But this is the surprise, and I think it's going to work out. Redentor is now down to 9 life left. He's taken 7 wounds. Those screams are piling up on top of that initial 3 damage. But he does now have a couple good beefy units on board. He's got 3 chant tokens. Herald always does, of course, have... there it is. Seeds of Aggression. That's a nice play. That's going to just keep on hurting Redentor. Also nice to see that there is a Crystal Shield in the deck, and if Carl did or does get one of those, that would be an extra bummer for Redentor. Carl, of course, still has Fears in the deck, so there is an absolute ton of removal, and that is really, really good for Carl. Redentor, of course, good spirits, LMAO, Seeds of Aggression play, close combat play. Those are always fun to see, especially when you have such a beefy unit. So he's swinging for the knight. It'll take 1 more damage. The demon dies. I'm assuming there's another scream. Yep, there we go. And Redentor is in trouble. Consume Soul, unfortunately, is going to be hard to set up. Because Carl he doesn't really have to play any units to the board at this point. As long as he has removal, he can just remove and scream. He doesn't have to play anything else. But if he plays something small, then the Gilder helps as well. Yeah, Shmany, Law of Domination would be amazing. That would be one of those cards that is like the jank counter to the jank. So that would be cool. Hey, we've got Brian, one of the greatest players in the world, and it's good to have you on the chat, Brian. What are you saying? It is the oldest running Ashes event. Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I am not one of the old timers. I'm only in the community now, I guess, coming up on 2 years. But I think AIL was actually one of the first tournaments I did join shortly, either before or after a shuffle bus, and I got absolutely spanked. But it was fun, and I've been playing competitive ever since. I think everyone should just jump in, shake off any fears of playing the greatest players, and just have fun, learn a whole lot, see a lot of really cool decks. It's really one of the best plays to even just get games in, because competitive events tend to run for many rounds. So between that and, of course, Phoenix League and First 5 League, which has been revamped by No Such Method, that's the main way of getting in all your online games. And, of course, Sunhold, I think it's called Sunhold League, the webcam league hosted by Flora. If you prefer to play with your physical cards over a webcam, that is also something you should inquire about on the Discord. There it is, a close combat. I called it ages ago. Combat tricks galore. Wow, that hurts. So the Phoenix Attendant engine is no more. That's going to be really tough for Redentor to heal back from. So, interesting. I was asking about what the charm dice could be, and there's a Blood Archer in the deck. Unfortunately, that doesn't help either because Blood Archer places a wound on itself, but it deals 1 damage to a target unit. So that's not going to help in this matchup. I'm assuming there's probably 2 more Phoenix Attendants, so we're not out of the running in terms of a heal engine. Redentor is ahead on cards, barely, 18 to 16 in the draw pile and 3 to 2 in hand. But this would have to be a very slow game with all of the healing being drawn for him to reach the mill state where that might matter. So it's back with another Frostback Bear. Carl is showing another Frog die. If he double combat close combats, that is just rough. Charlotte says the latest podcast is awesome, by the way. Really enjoyed it. Yes, Charlotte, I agree. Shmeny and I had a great time with it. It's an important topic, both in terms of our community, so the episode that was just dropped today, episode 17, was on our first part on community and inclusivity. We had Flora Snow and Nick Conley, the designer, on, and it was a great hour-long discussion. We covered a lot of topics like gendering pronouns, especially with Hope, Brennan's complex history and the lore around her or them. We covered, potential gaps in representation for Ashes and what that might mean for the future, and just how we can make an inclusive community in general, whether it's for new players or old players alike, and how that differs from other games. So it was a lot of fun. We have a part 2 that I'm not going to spoil, but that might be a while because, as I said, my wife is due soon and she is our editor. So it might be a gap of time before that episode comes out. All right, I've missed some action. Carl has played Crystal Shield, which, again, another card you just never see. But Crystal Shield adds unit guard and +2 life. So this Holy Knight, unless there's a miracle, is not budging. And there you go. The second Blood Archer, which I think is a little bit sad, comes down. But you know what? It might actually not be too bad here. You can't mark, but it still does end up doing 2 damage to the Holy Knight. So that would put it at 5 wounds out of 7. The Frostback Bear can put another 1, so that's 6. So, and then the Chant of Transfusion can move one of the wounds. So it is very possible. I doubted. I'm sorry. If Redentor pulls this off, I was a big naysayer, and I'm sorry for not trusting in his very good Ashes acumen and his skill at piloting this deck. Of course, if Carl does have another close combat, or even, well, not a fear, because you don't want to destroy the Holy Knight, but what else could he have? I mean, there's Gilder Ping and Frog Ping. That can deal with the bear now. Yes. What? Can I let the chant trigger solve to no effect? Pretty sure you can. Not sure what Redentor is asking, because he tried to move the wound from the Blood Archer to the Frostback Bear. What is Carl doing? Well, manual mode is important, but it can also sometimes be a little tough to track what they are trying to undo. Holy moly. Okay, Nature's Wrath. So that gets rid of the bear, and now there's just the Lonely Blood Archer. So we'll see. He's still got the ability to move 2 tokens. But, oh no, move from a target unit to another target unit. That's unfortunate. Can't target Holy Knight. So there we go. And he can't swing. I think this is going to be a pass. I don't remember if there is a way that Carl can remove devotion if he did clear the board for like a final swing, but I don't think he needs to. He's now got a massive lead in hit points, and Lightbringer is a solid control unit to just keep Redentor down. And of course, the Holy Knight, with all of those stacked alterations, has healed back to full life. And yeah, there's a little bug for you from Ashteki. When you attack or defend with alterations, they do not show. So there we go. And follows up with another Screams of the Departed. I'd be interested from anybody in chat watching, what would you do if you were Redentor right now? What is the strategy here? How do you go around this mammoth unit? How do you foresee the path to a win? Or is this a matter of playing out the last 6 life? Because the possibility too is that Carl has Molten Gold, and then all he needs is 2 Screams left. Yeah, there you go. The chat is silent, so nobody has an idea here. You have to be able to go super wide, but his deck is not suited for that. That is true, Brian. That is one approach. I think the issue with that is we've already seen that Carl is packing both Nature's Wrath and Meteor, and generally wide decks are filled with smaller units, and Carl is well suited to take out all of that. Not to mention the Law of Fear. So unless it's a lot of 2 or 3 attack units, 1 Law of Fear is going to virtually nullify any sort of wide board. And, you know, that would be my idea, but I don't think that's going to work here. Not with a deck full of Blood Archers and Phoenix Attendants. Age of the Clank Omatics says the same thing. Yeah. It is looking grim. Once you start to get under 5 or 4 life against a Jessa, especially if there is a health disparity and you don't have your own burn plan, it does become quite difficult, if not impossible. We talked about that actually in one of our episodes. We talked about inevitability. I think that was episode 16. And Jessa sort of has that built into her ability. As long as she can get ahead and stabilize the board, Screams is one of those inevitable things that can just keep going. And it's almost a shame, again, not that I think Redentor expected this, but if he did have a choke, that would have been great round 2. Swap out your Phoenix Spawn for Astria? No, I don't think that's going to help. One of the counters would be, as I said, Guilt Link. Shmeny offered up Law of Domination, which is seen much less than Guilt Link is, but still, it in theory could work. Another option is if he was on a very aggressive burn plan with Fire Archers and the full burn suite, that being Final Cry, Sympathy, Pain, and Molten Gold, just going over top. I think a Turbo Mill deck, the likes of something that Killer Cactus or myself have piloted in the past, could do it, because then again it's basically a burn deck once you get the Abundance and Orchid Doves online. It also runs Carl out of all the these control options, and you don't care for the removal, like the Area of Effect or the Law of Fears. And then another option outside of those, yeah, this is not going to work. This Frostback is going to get toast. What was I saying? Another option. So if you can't go wide, or not wide, but if you can't sort of take out the Holy Knight, then Kneel is another option, because Kneel doesn't target, and then at least you would be able to exhaust the Holy Knight and sort of nullify it. But you'd have to also be packing, ideally 3 Kneels. Ooh, so we see a Seal in Redentor's deck. That to me, unless he's running it consistently, indicates that he probably thought Carl might be running either a Fallen or a Creeper deck, and so he packed Seal as some anti-Carl tech, but he just got outguessed here. Hey, we've got Fred from the Discord, and yeah, you've missed quite the game so far. Carl is playing a stacked alteration Holy Knight. I don't want to say Voltron because I like to stay away from any sort of magic terminology for people not in the know. But he's running a very beefy Holy Knight with all kinds of crazy removal, and he's just burning Redentor out and removing all of his heal and ping tricks. I don't think so, Clank. I'm not going to look it up right now, but I believe Beguile is a target ability, so that you can't target the Holy Knight. Actually, it's spells. Sorry, ability. You're right. You know what? I'll double check that later. You might be right. Fighting Spirit is something that Shadow offers. Yeah, so another thing is if you can't go around it, punch through it. Just set up a really big Fighting Spirit swing, or, similarly, if Redentor is not a stranger to Mayoni, I think that would have been an interesting option. It's a good matchup even from the master set, but a big snake could have been very interesting, because it could have even been a root armored snake, and then we'd have this really interesting standoff here. That would have been a fun match to watch as well. So yeah, go big. Maybe he should have played Rhino. Just keep going with Echo Rhino. I think Red King has that type of deck. Just keep swinging it. Crypt Guardian, yeah. Charlotte, very good. See, this is This is why I shouldn't be commentating alone, because I can't remember all the cards under this kind of pressure. We're down to 2 life on Redentor, just to keep back on track. And that is probably it, but Redentor is going to have a think. Curious to see if he does have any outs. There's still Phoenix Attendants in the deck, so it is possible for him to heal a little bit, but Carl also still has the Lightbringers, and the Holy Knight being able to unit guard here is super gross. And it looks like, oh boy, Carl is also running heal, just to add insult to injury. So this Jessa is not going anywhere. Brian, you could dispel, but there are 3. I don't even know if root armor is really the problem here. I think the devotion and the crystal shield are more problematic because Redentor has enough beefy units, and in theory he can still at least put damage down, which means that you can't Hunter's Mark, but you could destroy it. But the devotion and the crystal shield together make this thing just immovable. Yeah, I know, Shadow. I know. Lightbringer would not help against the big knight because it is rooted. So it's not going anywhere. I'm assuming that's killer on our count chatting. This knight's not going anywhere, though, because it's rooted. That's part of the problem. All right, we're down to the last damage here. Close combat kills the old salt. And basically anything that Redentor puts down, if it dies, that is GG. Oh, he's calling it. No outs. Good game. Well played. Carl is our AIL final champion. Well played, Carl. That is quite the deck. It is gross to watch something so tall and just be frustrated with no outs. But yeah, that was the element of surprise. Yeah, Guilt Link is the best possible answer. I agree, Brian. So that is it. Thank you, everyone, for joining in the chat, helping me out with ideas on what could be the solution to this deck, because I guarantee that one of you is going to see this again in either a competitive game or a casual game. So have your Guilt Links, have your Law of Domination, have your Kneels, have your turbo mill plans and your aggressive burn plans, and your Crypt Guardians. Yes, Fred, this is recorded. This should upload automatically because it's a live stream, so it will be available after. You can catch all of the exciting server errors that started this whole thing off. When Carl plays, it breaks the game and the platform quite literally. So there you go. Thank you to the players. Thank you to the tournament organizers. And thank you, of course, to Dijon. We can't forget Dijon because he is what really lets this community shine, because we're actually able to play all of these online tournaments. Thank you to Nick Conley for continuing to design this amazing game. Very excited for Frostwild. Thank you to everyone who has actually paid attention to the Jankyard at all, because it's just three guys talking. So appreciate it. I'm out. This has been The Treatment from the Jankyard. Thank you, everyone, and have yourselves a good afternoon, good evening, and good night.